Greetings, this is CivilNet. Today we're speaking with Vrtanesyan, who coordinates a website called Razm Info. It's a website dedicated to security news and analysis from Armenia and from the region. Greetings, Karen.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. I wanted to ask you, to begin this discussion, to ask you what explains this almost more than a year hiatus as far as security situation along the line of contact between Armenia and Azerbaijan. For many years, situation was fairly tense. Then we had the war of April 2016. Then there's been a de-escalation. But for the past year, it seems like the calm has been unusual for that part of the world for the past, I think, 20 years.
It hasn't been calm for these 2 years. Actually, because we had escalation in February 2017 when there was an attempt there was a sabotage attempt, failed attempt on the Azerbaijan.
The last year, let's say.
Then there was, you remember definitely, the escalation and the exchange of fire in July, I believe, regarding that Azerbaijani woman and her granddaughter killed from artillery fire. And then we had situation in Nakhichevani, which started somewhere around in April and continued to March and June, through March and June.
May and June, yeah.
Yeah. So, and also we have that forces accumulation, Azerbaijani forces accumulation during the period of April through the end of June. So it wasn't that calm. There are much less attempts of penetration attempts on the Azerbaijani side because of the night vision cameras, because of regular cameras that are installed along the line of contact. So yeah, there has been less penetration attempts, but as for anything else, there is still some tension. And the other thing is that actually the time needed to escalate situation has been drastically reduced for the last several years, because Azerbaijan has installed they have built many new military bases along the line of contact, smaller bases but closer to the line of contact. There is also the question of mobility. They have bought many armored vehicles. They have bought self-propelled artillery, etc., etc., which allows them to concentrate enough forces for an attack attempt. I mean, large-scale attempt. In much shorter times than it would be required, let's say, 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Still, what I wanted to get from you is what explains the current relative restraint as far as the line of contact?
I think first of all it's heat. That may sound banal, but that's one part of it. They are, for example, active during the night, early morning hours, but there is much less activity because of the high temperature. Also, I think on the political level, they are waiting for Armenia to get into some chaotic situation, probably. I'm sure they are looking forward to seeing some civil unrest in Armenia, some tensions between the different parts of the government, of authorities, maybe between the government and the army, the police and the army, or police and the government, something like that. So they are waiting for tensions, they are waiting for some critical situation in Armenia, maybe to do some attempts like it was in April 2016.
Mm-hmm. But in April 2016?
No, I mean to do some operation
on that scale.
Yeah, of that scale, or probably larger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think the impact has been of the Armenian-Russian relations, or like the tense exchanges in Armenian-Russian relations on this?
That's also a serious factor, especially if we consider that in Azerbaijan, because of that propaganda, the official propaganda that explained all the failures of Azerbaijani side, it was explained by Russian meddling, by Russian support of Armenia, because I mean, their official propaganda is that we are much stronger than Armenia, we have more resources than Armenia, Armenians are starving, Armenians are weak, they are cowards, etc., etc. So there is a logical question, like how come Armenia won the first war? And they explained that because Russia was supporting Armenia. So the Russian support is very exaggerated, and I think it's to the point when the decision makers in Azerbaijan, they also believe that, maybe not in full, but they also give too much credit to Russian influence there, probably. So if there are some tensions between Armenia and Russia, that may, of course, support the Azerbaijani wish to do something in Karabakh, or maybe Nakhichevani or elsewhere.
Right. What, by the way, we didn't touch on that before. How do you think it's significant? What's the significance of the Nakhichevani situation that occurred in April and May?
My personal opinion is that the plan to advance their posts in Nakhichevani, it was the operation was thought out long before April 2018. But the situation in Armenia, that chaotic situation, that transition period, it was definitely a stimuli for them to try to attempt and to carry on that operation. So what we see from satellites is that they have built 7 roads starting from May 2nd, from the end of April and through May 2nd through the end of May, to support their new positions, to make lines of supply for their new positions. So situation in Armenia definitely had some impact on their decision to start that operation. Of course, everything that happened there was on officially their territory. Okay, though actually there is no delimitation in Nakhichevani, and there is, in case we settle the conflict, there are going to be decades of delimitation, I think, the talks, negotiations, etc. But In any case, in some points, not in every point, but in several of their posts may threaten our line of supply, the main road from Yerevan to Karabakh, that north-south, so-called north-south road. And actually, they came close to Armenia, which has been something unseen by the villagers of Armenia for the last since the war was.
So it's potentially
since the war ended in 1994.
Yeah, potentially can have significance for both local economy and for security.
I think not much for the economy, but probably to apply some psychological pressure on local population. I mean, in Nakhichevani, their positions aren't very strong in general. So any attack on Armenian civilians would bring on retaliation from Armenian side. I think that's 100%. I'm 100% sure. But still, that brings some psychological pressure.
One thing I was going to ask you is, over the past couple of years now, you've been using satellite imagery for your analysis. Generally, around the world, with the different applications and other commercially available satellite imagery, how is that changing your analysis? What kind of impact it has, you think, this increased availability of satellite imagery?
It makes our work faster and more profound, probably, our view on situation. Also, I think that the government players should be more careful with their announcements, because many things can be checked. It's unlike in old times when some official could say, like, this happened or that happened on the border, and you just didn't have any alternative source. You couldn't go and check there, etc., etc. But many things are now visible, and it's unlike before when, for example, it took years to Google Maps to update. Now there are some other services that they don't give very good resolution images, but still it's enough to see a new road built, it's enough to see some activity somewhere, so it helps a lot. And it has shortened the time span when you can check something.
Well, one other thing I was going to ask you is this project that Razminfo has been involved in called Harbi Media, which is military media in Azerbaijani, and a project basically producing new security news in Azerbaijani language geared towards Azerbaijani public. And one thing I noticed about it is that it tried to, unlike most projects that you see, say Azerbaijani projects in Armenian or Armenian projects in Azerbaijani, it sort of tried to be less antagonistic, more just matter of fact, and like when it would be Nowruz, you would congratulate Azerbaijani public with Nowruz, and just do regular things that that are normal to do. Could you talk a little bit about that project? How that come about? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
We started it in February 2017 after that failed diversion attempt by Azerbaijani forces to give them information about the casualties, because I remember for several days the Azerbaijani Ministry of Defense, they tried to not to tell about the casualties. They didn't admit those until Armenian side published some videos. You remember that? So it was an attempt to try to speak to Azerbaijani public directly, especially given the fact that Razminfo is blocked in Azerbaijan along with several other Azerbaijani opposition websites. Also from Armenia, Razminfo is blocked. The Azerbaijani section of Armenian public radio website. So they can't block separate pages
on social
Facebook,
media,
on social media platforms. So we decided to create a page on Facebook. Actually, it requires lots of resources because we have here in Armenia we have problem with people who can speak and write in Azerbaijani fluently. That's a serious problem. Especially, there are very few young specialists who understand not only the language but also the modern context, who understands social media, who understands the culture, social media culture, what is allowed, what is not. So it requires lots of resources. We also try to stay in contact with some Azerbaijanis. We ask them stuff. Sometimes they answer, sometimes don't. So we are trying to, struggling to create a source which would give information that would be trusted in Azerbaijan by an Azerbaijani reader. Of course, there are not, I think there are not many neutral readers, neutral Azerbaijani readers, because sometimes it looks like there are people on duty who, whenever someone writes a comment there are several people who reply that like this is Armenian page, don't write here, don't read this, etc., etc. But still there are, I think, several hundred people from Azerbaijan who read our website. They don't react mostly, but we can see from statistics how many people read that. It's not that big. Of course we can try to become bigger, larger, etc., but to provide some at least some important information, I think it's a good platform. It has lots of space to grow regarding the April-May events in Armenia. That Velvet Revolution thing, there was, they were shocked because that contradicted the image that was created during the decades by Azerbaijani propaganda. It was like, hey, you said there were no people left in Armenia, look how many people there are there, or hey, look at the cars they are driving, because Azerbaijani television was showing some old Soviet cars, and now they saw their, modern foreign-made cars. So that was probably the latest peak in the interest toward our webpage. They were asking things about the revolution. They were asking things like, who is Nikol Pashinyan? Do you think he will be he would take a softer approach on Karabakh issue, etc., etc.
One final question for you: obviously there are many factors that might impact, but what is your outlook towards Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict on the military side of things? For short term, let's say, for the next 6 to 12 months.
Honestly, in May, we were expecting a sharp escalation of violence and probably even large-scale operations along the contact line, probably some attacks. I don't think that the risk has decreased significantly, especially given that mobility thing I talked about. We can expect some sort of tensions, let's put it like this. We can expect some tensions probably any time from now.
Mm-hmm. So it's just an unpredictable situation. It's hard to predict.
Probably, yeah.
But likely that there would be some kind of tension.
I think that it's like 50% of probability that something may be started until the end of the year, until the winter.
All right, well, in that forecast, thank you very much, Karen. This has been ＳիվիլՆեթ. Join us again, please.